Morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Combined Fire Authority meeting. I'm standing in as chair for Nick, who's actually on leave at the moment. I don't know if where he is, but we just have to put up with where we are at the moment. Um, Thank you. Any apologies for absence? Sorry.
If I may, Mr. Bannister gave a late apology. He contacted me fairly latest last night. He's been called as an emergency into court.
Oh dear.
Tomorrow, as you know, we've been part of the court proceedings. So he asked me to make sure you noticed his apology.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Annette Burns sent her apologies as well. Any other apologies not listed? There was a very much indeed. So the meeting will be recorded and later streamed to YouTube viewing after the meeting. And the link will be available from the CFA website. So can we all ensure that we switched off our mobile phones, either switched off or put to silence? And so far, as I said, we have the apologies from Mr. Lush, Mr. Grimley, Councillor Ray Batty, Mr. Smith, and Mrs. Farr, and Councillor Orton will be substituting, as mentioned earlier. So, do you have any declarations of interest from members for the item on the agenda? No declarations of interest?
So,
Right.
declarations. Well, for equality, diversity, and I want to declare that I'm a board member of Leicester Council of Faiths and Bishop State Forum member and patron of St. Martin's.
Is that a bit?
We can just note that. Thank you.
You don't mention anything. No one else has any declaration of interest in all of it. I understand that there are no urgent items under number 3. In terms of chairman's announcements, it has been circulated separately in advance. And I'd just like to highlight a few of the items on the agenda. One in particular was close to my heart, which is equality, diversity and inclusion. I'd like to say a very warm welcome to new Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Manager. The successful candidate comes with a wealth of experience in local matters and public service. Is it not?
The recording's flashing.
Sorry, can you not hear me?
No, the recording's flashing. I'm not sure the recording log's working properly. If I may, Chair, would members be comfortable? Is it okay, Lauren, if I record the Teams meeting, then we can upload that? Oh, okay.
Oh, that's fine. We welcome the new Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Manager, and the person comes with a wealth of experience, and we really hope his skills and contacts and enthusiasm will move the service forward in this key area over the coming years. And I understand that regular reports will be provided to the CFA, which is really good. So personally, with my interest in equalities, I'm absolutely delighted with the new appointment. Mobilising system. The contract for the new mobilising system has now been signed and all relevant stamps and periods have been completed. Teams from the service and the suppliers have already met and the implementation plan has now been agreed and is in place. Staff within the control room have been updated and are overwhelmingly supportive. The full project update will be presented to the next CFA meeting. Thank you for that, Colin. Public participation, item 5. Any questions? I understand no questions have been submitted in advance. Is that correct? Thank you. Item 6. First, we need to confirm the minutes of the meeting of the Combined Fire Authority held on the 21st of June 2023. These can be found on pages 5 to 12 of your agenda pack. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of June 2023 be taken as read and confirmed and signed. I will need a seconder. Can I have a second? Been seconded. Thank you very much. So the main item on the agenda is the Community Risk Management Plan for 2024 to 2028. These will be found on pages 13 to 74 of your agenda pack, and I'll hand over to the Chief Bar Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. Given the recent change in the Fire Authority, I will probably go through a little bit more detail than normally would, just to give people background and the understanding of what a CRMP is and where it's come from and the need for it. So under the Fire and Rescue Services National Framework, Fire and Rescue Services are required to produce an integrated risk management plan, or IRMP, for a minimum period of 3 years, if not longer. So usefully, in conjunction with this, a new national fire standard has been agreed, which has changed the name from Integrated Risk Management Plan to Community Risk Management Plan, which is where the CRMPs come from. So longer serving members will probably be familiar with IRMP. That's now changed to CRMP. Fundamentally, the process behind a CRMP hasn't changed. So it's the chance for all fire and rescue services to look at our community risk that we're facing, evolving trends, historic data, new and emerging trends or development within our service area, and then look to allocate our resources appropriately to meet those risks, potentially changing some aspects of the service that we may want to offer, increase, decrease, or whatever it may be. So a very small but incredibly dedicated data team have been crunching the numbers for quite some time in the background, looking at where trends are evolving for us as a service, any new emerging areas of business for us, and where we potentially need to address any areas of concern. So that very high level data analysis is contained within Appendix 2 of this paper. What I would say is there is an immense amount of data that sits behind it. If you are interested in drilling down more, we would happily put a workshop on for members to sit with our small but dedicated team of analysts to kind of really take the data trail as far down as you'd like to go with it, really. But it's probably not appropriate to bring all of that data to this meeting. And certainly one area that we are analysing and would like to improve an area of service delivery is around the impacts of climate change to Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. So as we saw very acutely last summer, the increased summer periods, hot weather changed the dynamics of calls we were going to, and possibly arguably we could look to improve some of the hardware and equipment we use to tackle that. But equally, the winter months of increased periods of sub-zero temperatures, increased likelihood of flooding. It's an area that we can improve our capabilities, and we're very keen to do so. And in fact, Assistant Chief Officer Weston will describe how already some of that is in training in the Tactical Response Vehicle paper. And also, as part of that, we basically set the aims and objectives for the organisation for the next 4-year period. So our current IRMP runs until April 2024, and this one would pick up the baton and move us through to April 2028, subject to it being approved. As part of the national framework conditions, we are required to go out to public consultation for this, and that needs to be in accordance with the gunning principles, no less than 12 weeks. So we are looking to get this document out no later than the 1st of September for public and partner consultation. So it's produced for members' perusal today. There are a couple of areas I will draw your attention to, notably the headlines, really. What I would say is, as a headline, it's not actually in the document. We aren't looking at reducing service delivery. We aren't looking at removing fire engines. In fact, quite the opposite. And we aren't looking at closing stations or any of those big contentious issues. We are set very well for the future. I suppose to probably highlight the most, and I do apologise, my bundle has got scrambled, so I can't give you the page number for this. But I suppose members will be aware for the last few years, we have been exiting from the day crewing plus duty system. For the most part, whilst it's been a lot of work in the background between ourselves and the Fire Brigade Union, we've got a decent agreed plan forward. There is one element in that around the Castle Donington fire station that is required to go out to public consultation, because we are proposing to alter the delivery of service in that station. So, and again, for the benefit of new members, currently Castle Donington is crewed on a 24/7 basis, 365 days a year, with a crew stationed on the at there ready to go at an immediate moment's notice. As part of the CRMP, we would propose to downgrade that crewing to be daytime only for 7 days a week. And then at night, 2 smaller vehicles from Weston Fire Station and Loughborough Fire Station will move over to Castle Donington to crew that throughout the night. So there, in effect, it will still be a 24/7 station, but there is likely to be 2 hours in the 24-hour period where vehicles are travelling to that station as opposed to permanently being there. This is the best possible solution that we've been able to arrive at in agreement with the Fire Brigade Union with the funding that's available to us at the moment. Should public consultation be less favourable from that, I think I need to be clear with the CFA and the community. It's not a choice of keeping the status quo. We can't keep the status quo. The option being proposed is the best possible option we can find. If the public don't accept that, there is a less favourable option of relocating one of our city pumps out to Castle Donington. So you would resolve the Castle Donington issue, but you are likely then to take one pumping appliance out of the city. There are still 5 or 6 pumps available in the city, but that would be a quite dramatic change. And I think the thing I'm trying to impress on members at the moment is, if the public don't like that option, we haven't got an option just to keep the status quo. There is a consequence to coming away from the day crew and plus duty system. With that said, I know a lot of work's gone on between the Fire Brigade Union and ourselves. It's not a bad option we're presenting. It's an alteration of service delivery, not a reduction. In addition to that, we are introducing a new response vehicle at Weston Fire Station, and we will be introducing another fire engine in the Loughborough area. So the balance of that is still a net gain for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. And I think the only other part, and I do apologise for those members of corporate governance who heard me talk about this only a couple of weeks ago, is the attendance time standard. So currently we have in our IRMP the attendance time of 10 minutes on average to reach life-threatening incidents within 10 minutes on all occasions. Members will have seen we are not currently meeting that target, and actually, if anything, we seem to be getting further away from that target. That's, again, our data team have been crunching the numbers on that and identifying the trends. That is predominantly outweighed by road traffic collisions in rural areas that take an increased amount of time, A, to ascertain exactly where the incident is, and B, then the travel times to reach those rural areas. So the 10-minute attendance standard includes the call handling time. So to be honest with the community, when they ring 999 and wonder where the fire engine is, they will look back at their phone, and that's from when the time of call started, not when they hung up. So in the last IRMP, we included the call handling time. We are the only fire and rescue service that does that we're aware of at the moment. And certainly when we report nationally, that's dropped out, and there's a few calculations that have to go on. So I think from my point of view and officer's point of view, the 10-minute attendance time is becoming incredibly challenging for us, and I am not convinced we will be able to continue to meet that. So there is a discussion as part of the CRMP of, is that still appropriate for us as a service? Of course, we want to get to every incident as physically possible, quickly as possible as we can do, but covering all of Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland is becoming a challenge to do that. We have also analysed if are our stations in the right place in those rural areas. And unfortunately, because of the nature of the incidents and the sporadic nature of where they are, if we moved one of our stations to another location, we'd solve some of those travel times, but create more travel times. And as members will be acutely aware, we do not have the resources to open more stations or create more stations. So I think that's certainly one area the team and I will look to focus on, but I would be interested in the authorities' views on that, of how we can best be honest with the community about what we're doing and how we're doing it, but equally not set ourselves a target that we know we're not going to be able to reach. And then, as I say, if approved by the authority today, it will go out to public consultation commencing in September. I would say we're open to any feedback prior to that date, so that we could look to incorporate it before we go out to public consultation. My colleague in the room, tucked away in the corner there, then got the enviable task of taking it out to public consultation. And again, we put an awful lot of effort in to reach as many possible as we can do. I think last time we reached about 100,000 either groups or people in the community, but received a very, very low number in return. And I think that's something all public consultations suffer from to a degree. Subject to that all being approved and moving through, we would look to bring back the finalised document to Combined Fire Authority and the February meeting for approval to publish the document and begin enacting the IRMP. Sorry, CRMP. Any questions, Chair?
Yes. It's very pleased to hear about the targets that we set as 10 minutes being something which is unique, because that's something that we did discuss at the meeting. So I was able to represent what the public perception of that was. I'm interested in reasons why that is now slipping, and there could be others which are not related to the fire service. Such as roadworks and so on, both in the city and county, seem to be happening a lot at the same time, because it's not any either authority's fault. It's when the government put the money and it just coincides with different places, because I know they're grant funded. Has that been a hold up? Because it's holding everybody else up, and I'm sure it's been holding up fire authority as well. And the other thing which I've noticed recently, whether or not it's that the media are reporting more, it seems that there seems to be more traffic accidents, and motorway seems to be closed for part of every day. And I don't recall it being like that previously, and wondered if that was something that was happening more and more. The other comment was your need to respond to climate change, which has changed the nature of some of the incidents that you attend. I think it would be useful as well if the fire service were able to publicise that, because at the moment it's often seen as a political issue when it isn't to do with party politics. It's something that affects everybody, and people need to realise that it's not something that one party is imposing or another party. It's things that we have to work together on. And I think the fire service is seen as a neutral forum that the public are likely to respond better to than if it's a politician telling them.
Okay, to respond, Chair.
Yes.
If I miss any, pull me up on it. I think the first thing around attendance times, there are a few factors with this. So we have seen our call handling time and our mobilisation time. So the time taken to get the 909 call has remained roughly stable. The time taken for crews to be alerted and come out the door has, if anything, decreased a little bit, and the travel times have certainly increased. Now, as I said earlier, predominantly that's due to the rural locations of some of the incidents around road traffic collisions. We have seen a spike with Stockton Prison, with a number of series of incidents there that all sit outside of our 10-minute attendance time, which I suppose, to be fair, yeah, we've actually done some really good intervention, and those since May, those calls have fallen off a precipice, thankfully. But I think roadworks will be a challenge. The increased traffic on the road is a challenge. Yeah, so I have to be really. We encourage our crews to get to the scene as quickly but as safely as possible. So I don't think there's anything more we can safely do to encourage our drivers to get to incidents, because actually we then might be counterproductive if we push them too far, which is where I think actually the attendance standard is something we need to focus on. Yes, roadworks will play a part of it, but not a significant part. Motorways, I have to say, the M1 is a particularly bad character for that at the moment. It seems to be closed a lot. Thankfully, we don't attend an awful lot of incidents on the M1, so the incidents are likely to be slow speed, low injury, I suppose rear end impacts, really. But I think it's a common trend across all of the sector that we seem to be going to more road traffic collisions nowadays. It's certainly the area where we affect more rescues and save more lives. Sorry, climate change. I didn't answer climate change, did I? Yeah. So if you can bear with us, Councillor Barton, we are due to take delivery of the variable response vehicles in the next 4 to 6 weeks. That actually gives us something physical to demonstrate to the community rather than just a news article of what we're doing. So we're quite keen to publicise that once we've physically got hold of them and can show what it is. Certainly, I wish we'd have had them for the last summer period, because they would have made a big difference. I think that was all of them.
Yeah.
Yes, Chief. So basically, get another one relating to the 10-minute drive time. I represent a town centre, and my inbox is constantly inundated with parking on both sides of the road and things like that. And one of the things that residents always cite is the fact that the fire engine can't get through. Is that something that you've noticed? Is that something that is happening regularly for you guys? And if so, Is there any comms that we can put out to mitigate that?
It is something we notice, and it's something we take active steps on. So we have a number of leaflets that are designed to look very much like fixed penalty notices. So where we do struggle when we're doing our day-to-day business to struggle to get through, we'll stop and leaflet those vehicles. It's more around not that we can't get through, but we have to slow down significantly to get through. The VRVs, again, I'm not pinning all of the hope of the service on the VRVs. They're smaller vehicles, so should be able to get through some of those areas quicker. It's something where problems arise, we address, but yes, it's an ongoing challenge. And certainly as there becomes more and more road users, parking becomes more and more difficult. It's something that challenges us. I don't know if ACO Western's got anything to add on that from service delivery point of view, without throwing you under the bus.
Thanks, Ross. The majority of our incidents are impacted by road congestion is within the city areas, not seeing some, although there is pockets of problems. As Ross has alluded to, we are proactive in our community awareness around the posting of, they do look like a fixed penalty notice on vehicles, and we're very active on social media promoting about keeping streets clear, allowing vehicles to pass. So we are proactively doing some work. Again, without pinning all the hopes on variable response vehicles, they are a smaller vehicle. They are designed to tackle both rural and some of the urban issues.
I think just to finally add, any areas where we have hotspots or particular troubles, we'll also work with the police to kind of undertake enforcement activity in that area where possible. We don't always find out the outcome or the success of that because we don't need to, but where we have hotspots, we will happily work with it. And if you've got something in mind, we'll happily get the local stations to go out and proactively go to that area, because we would much rather reduce a problem before we encounter it.
Thanks, Chief. Looking at it in a slightly different way with this attendance, and like you're saying, you know, sometimes you can give a station being somewhere else, etc. You take the ambulance service, they'll have paramedic vans, and they'll be parked up, not hospitals, etc. Other places, maybe police stations, one of them. When you've got these VRVs coming through, similar size type vehicles, is it a possibility if you had a spare VRV? Would you be able to do something where you could park the team up at the police station or something like that to put something in if you've got specific problems with a large roadworks that's going for weeks, it's causing you problems, or just an area you can't get to? Could you actually go, instead of just being based in the station, could you base a VRV, move it around as you need it so that you've got that quick response?
Yes, we could. The answer, I suppose, is yes. We're looking at the incidents day. The incidents where we really struggle with the 10 minutes are very sporadic in their nature and their location. So it may come down to the luck of the draw. If you were to put it in the right location at the right time when an incident may happen, it would have an impact. So that is a bit hit and miss around the generic response. Absolutely. If we were to know of major roadwork closes with roads being closed, etc., we would look to rehouse the fire engine under normal circumstances anyway. I am aware of some services with new vehicles that are, for example, during the day, moving it to park in a Tesco's car park because or a supermarket car park, other brands are available. Yeah. Because they are willing to then release their staff to crew the fire engine. So there is a lot of innovation out there. I think it comes down to the crewing model. So at the moment, to guarantee that resource being available, we'd have to look at taking some whole-time firefighters away from what they're currently crewing to crew the VRV. So it's a world of possibilities, but equally, and I don't want to pour water on it just yet, we need to make sure the vehicles do what we want them to do first, which is the purpose of the trial. And then I think in 2 or 3 years' time, we've got some hopefully exciting conversations to have around how we can really evolve and kick on.
First of all, I welcome this briefing. And not publicly, I want to say thank you to Fire Authority and your staff out there, communities. I mean, you hear a lot of things, complaints about ambulances, but touch wood, so far, fire services, nobody has ever said anything wrong. In fact, people are very appreciative. So thank you to you and your staff.
Thank you.
First one is about consultation. I know you said you are going live on 1st of September. So the methodology, I know these days everything is done online. But looking at the population, especially the diverse communities, everybody's can't access it. So will there be some sort of hard copies? They can be left in the neighborhood centers? Because people, when they come, they can pick up and then we'll have a better consultation, you know.
Yep.
Online will be only people who can access technology. So if you can, I know it is there might be a cost attached to it, printing out, so I would say it will be help. And second is on the environment, you have mentioned wildfires. I would like you to add festivals as well, because that's a big hazard. Diwali is coming now. And I'm with my own cousin's brother's family with the lamp on Somerville Road 2 years back. 5 members were burnt.
Yeah.
And we are living with that pain. But after that, the fire services, you did a real big campaign, and many of the communities, they had these fire alarms fitted. And I must say that your staff has been so wonderful, even late at night, they've been coming and visiting people, you know. So that has gone very nicely. And during Diwali, with partnership from Hastings Doors, you know, they with the police, we used to have some leaflets, awareness, and it's called Diva Awareness.
Yes.
So I think it will be nice if you can do it, because after COVID, the Diwali is going to be celebrated again on a large scale. And there are so many new communities who are not aware.
Yeah.
So especially some areas, you know, where more diverse population, it will be really helpful. And one thing is, you know, later on, sometimes when you are, if you can just bring a paper on your community engagement, that will be helpful as well. Because I know fires, you have been donating fire engines, the Bulgaria, Germany, and your team football, they're going to play. I have witnessed and traveled myself when I was Lord Mayor. So this will be helpful, a positive paper as well, you know, but the fire service is going. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
In response, thank you for your kind comments. We will pass that on to the crews. I know they welcome positive feedback. They work very hard to try and make a positive impact for everyone. But we can't be everywhere all of the time. But they work incredibly hard. So thank you for that. I think the festival's comment is an absolutely fair comment and something we'll take on board and incorporate before we go out to publication. With regards to the hard copies, again, we'll take that on board. Clearly, we can't print off millions, but we can have something. I think that's a fair comment. Yeah, it did happen before, and I'm not going to commit to anything because I haven't had a proper conversation with my colleague about exactly what's planned, but I'm sure there will be something we can do. Yeah. But the consultation equally is important. Yes, there's an expense, but the consultation is really, really important. Yeah. And secondly, I suppose lastly, around the divas, I'm aware it was before I joined the service, but I'm aware of the tragic incident, and that created a great, sorry, I shouldn't say great because it was a horrific incident. But it created an opportunity for us to really engage with the community and have the great success. And I know one of our station managers, Station Manager Bulsara, did an excellent job in engaging with the community and having some great success. And as you allude to, the community has changed a little bit now, and the power of that incident has waned away. So we would be keen, any advice or any doors you can open for us to re-engage with the community. We're absolutely on board with that, and we might ask you help us to help you, if you know what I mean, because it's an important thing. We have run Diva campaigns every year subsequently. They haven't, because the impact of that incident has gone away, they haven't been as successful. So we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're keen to prevent an incident rather than respond to an incident. So anything we can do. But thank you for your comments. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yep. And I can happily produce a report reference for our community safety or community engagement. It will be a long report, just to warn you, because we do an awful lot of it, but that's exactly what we should be doing.
So big stand thing on Cossington Park. We've been at Caribbean Carnival.
just different events around the city and county, which is that sometimes people will engage if they recognise their councillors there, for instance. Then you can lead them to talk to the safety officers and fire officers, firefighters that are on site. Sometimes having equipment that they can have a go with attracts people, and have really positive responses from Pride about the equipment that was there.
So we still do all of that and more. Absolutely.
Interject here because I'm having an event on in my patch of work. If free, the local fire engines coming out as well. I think I did it through you, consulted you on that one, and they said if there's no accidents or anything, the fire engine will be out there, which is a good public relations exercise in many ways.
Absolutely, certainly. It's a new challenge for us because certainly the bigger Caribbean carnivals, they don't allow vehicle movements on site. Now, clearly, our vehicles will need, or hopefully they won't need to move, but we always have to guarantee the ability that they can respond to emergency incidents. So sometimes we can't take the physical fire engines to those type of events, but we have always had another form of it's not stall, is it? But if you know what I mean, another thing. But we sometimes lose the punch power or traction of a fire engine because we can't take it on. No, because of they've changed the policy of the larger scale events because of previous accidents, not within LLR, but nationally around. There's no on-site vehicle movements allowed. So it's not a showstopper for us. We have to adapt to the way we then deliver that service.
Risk. Just wonder what we can do to meditate against that risk.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chair, my scrambled IT. What subject are we talking about?
Sorry, I've a page number here, page 62. Yeah.
Yeah, through my own IT mistake, my page numbers have all been deleted. So
Okay. Sorry, I'm just going by the
building fires. Yeah, sorry, that relates to building fires or fires in property. Clearly, we have a number of strands of work, such as going out proactively fitting home fire or conducting home fire safety checks, smoke alarms, awareness, behavioural change, whether that be proactively or whether it after incident response. I think given the makeup of the community across all of Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, it is predominantly white male. Well, the large significant will be white males. But so therefore, proportionately, the likelihood is for building fires, it's more likely to occur for white males across the whole service area. So I think that's a bit of a statistical anomaly. What I would say is, as I've reported to corporate governance for the last sort of 3 years, the number of engagements, the number of home fire safety checks we're doing are significantly improved to the point where we are, depending on the metric you use, 4th best in the country for conducting numbers of home fire safety checks. The number of domestic dwellings and a number of injuries, or domestic dwelling fires and injuries resulting from it, have fallen significantly year on year. So it would appear our strategy and our interventions are working. Obviously, until that number's 0, we've still got more work to do.
The IT, the papers won't come through.
Are you okay?
And so I was trying to speak with Councillor Snood and got the information, so I didn't know what the question was referring to.
So, any further questions? Sorry. You have a second? Yes. Good. The report's been moved. And a seconder, so let's go on to the next item, which is. Agreed. Oh, sorry, has everybody agreed? Yes. Thank you very much, indeed. Which takes us on to equality and diversity and exclusion scheme.
Excuse me for the on and off of glasses, it's that unfortunate age in the brain. So, thank you, members. If I can refer you to, the report in relation to, equalities, and it's the, so again, the equality scheme, the annual report, which is the mean by which to report progress. So within the cover report, you've got two appendices, one which you'll see is attached in the form of our profile, but secondly, the one that's quick, which I would strongly encourage members to have a look at at some point, because it does give quite a lot of information in relation to our progress against equality and diversity. So the first document is Appendix A. I'll deal with the documents, but then I'll come back to the recommendations if that's okay, Chair.
Yeah.
Appendix A is legally required for the Fire Authority, and it is required to produce an annual equality and diversity scheme, which talks about its duties under the Equalities Act 2010 in relation to the protected characteristics. We're required as an organisation to produce a series of objectives that set out an ambition for the organisation to meet those requirements under the Act. So that's what you've got set out in Appendix A. Appendix B is our annual report against that scheme. The scheme itself runs from 2022 to 2027. Forgive me for dotting about a bit, but we recently appointed an EDI manager in the form of Isla Dixon. And one of the significant pieces of work that Isla will do is to do a bit of a health check against our equality schemes, and also look at how we can improve our reporting to our authority on through the annual report. So that's sort of a bit of a work in the pipeline. Isla landed with us in May, so it is still relatively early doors. And as I said to members earlier, the one thing that we did ask her to do was to produce the annual report, so she kind of has to hit the ground running. One of the things that I would look to do is to introduce an element of comparative data for members, so that there is a bit of a review of progress. I think it's important to say that we are on a journey, and we're probably not quite as well forward as we hope to be. However, and again in the report, the cover report, I have acknowledged that there has been a little bit of a slowing down due to the fact that we haven't got that sort of singular resource with a professional guide in mind in terms of where to go. Thanks to members' support in terms of putting some finances behind this, we have been able to recruit now to that EDI manager. And in addition to that, we've also taken on board a positive action coordinator, who again will link through HR, through recruitment, and to the EDI manager to help us to target some of those campaigns. I realise I'm going off script, but it's probably easier to talk through from the heart than it is to a sterile report. The hope is that through yourselves, members, I think absolutely you've got a key role to play in terms of helping us to highlight some of the areas of the community that we can best work with to improve and to promote the fact that we do want to be more and more representative of those communities. So if I can go back to the actual report, members may be aware that we have had it. So in addition to the requirements of the Equality Act as a scheme, we've also been challenged in relation to the culture of the Fire and Rescue Service nationally, as have a number of public bodies. It's not just the Fire and Rescue issue. Through the cultural survey that was conducted in October and landed with us in December last year, we don't believe we've got a significant issue. And if I can refer you to page 68, in the previous year, so it's on the glossy equalities report, we had 8 cases that were reported of bullying and harassment, and a further 9 in relation to discipline. Does that tell the whole story? We're not entirely sure. So we'll continue to be proactive through the commissioning of an independent report into our culture and take on board the findings. The report itself acknowledges that those challenges that we've got are coming from the HMRC, they're coming from the digital survey, and then we've also got the equality report. So one of the ambitions of the report, subject to your approval, is that we consolidate those various strands into one plan rather than them can be adopted about. The governance of this will come through, it's proposed as is now really. It's a little bit unusual that this report would come to the Fire Authority, but just a matter of timing. It would normally be reported through the Corporate Governance Committee, which you're aware, Chair. And we've actually asked Isla now, as the professional guiding line, to chair the Tactical Equality and EDI, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Board, which then reports to the strategic board. So that's contained within the body of the report. And I think having that professional guiding mind will help us to consolidate smoothly the actions. So within the actual report itself, the annual report, so if I can ask you to go to page 42, the starting point. That gives members and actually members of the public, because this will go on to the external website, gives at a glance the sort of workforce breakdown of our organisation as it stood when the report was produced 2 to 3 months ago. I'm not going to, sorry, my laptop's decided to not play ball either. I'll revert to those. So areas of note really, in the absence of that comparative data, I did do a quick little bit of homework before I came into the authority meeting, as you would expect. And it's pleasing to show that as a whole, our workforce, our women's makeup, if you like, women within the service has gone up actually from 18.4% to 20.4% in the last year. As I say, we've done a significant amount of recruitment, and I wouldn't want to mislead members in the sense that that's entirely an operational now. It also incorporates our professional support services, which is actually made up of almost 28% of women. So again, that is an improvement in the round. The thing that I did pick up when I was in the pre-meeting was one of the things that is particularly pleasing from a wider organisational development is actually the trend is showing we're getting more people who are willing to disclose their particular characteristic, whether that's through neurodiversity, unseen disabilities, sexual orientation, etc. So I think from a trust and confidence point of view, that it is very encouraging. If you, sorry, I am going to see if I can get my notifications to actually work. If I can refer you to page 49, it's on the complete.
I think our packs have been skewed compared to the members' packs because the page numbers aren't lining up for the members.
Quite a lot of useful information, isn't it? As I say, I think the headline message, without going through lots and lots of details, is the request is to consolidate the various action plans that we've got into one focus on people, who we are, what we are, and why we are. And it gives you the report against the annual scheme. So, as I say, they're the areas for no chair. Because our facts are somewhat different, I will attempt to answer any questions that you've got, but if it is specifically in relation to statistics, you'll need to work with a little bit. The overarching profile is that we are in a reasonably good place, particularly if you compare us to our regional colleagues, which in my pack is in 92, but that's probably not helpful to you. Gives you an overarching view of where we are against our regional colleagues. and that trend is very similar. We're doing okay, but we know that there's more work to do.
And I add something here, because I'm the Equalities University. Don't like the word, but they call it champion, but I really have a passion for it, because it's something I taught at university, and I mean, I grew up in Northern Ireland, so I do know how some of the issues work. And I think it's quite important that we be as proactive as possible on this one. I know we've had open days and different types of events to encourage people to come along. We do Ramadan month, it's far, but I probably pronounced that wrong. But it was nice to see the mix there. And that's a good way, I think, to have these events, more informal events to build on. What you're doing, then people will have the confidence maybe to come forward to approach to actually see if they would want to join the service. So the more work we do to be proactive and encourage people to come forward, the better we will be in representing the whole of our constituency, which is quite wide when we include Leicester City. But thank you very much for that update, Julia, and I do know that you're working very hard on this issue. And thank you, everybody. And I think a big thank you to the chief as well, because he supported all of the work that's going on here 100%. And I think we ought to call him to acknowledge that also. Thank you very much. So, any questions? Yes.
What question? Just compliment. I said this. I welcome this briefing. It's very good. Thank you. And these two at a glance. One is about the new commerce, and one is already there.
Yeah.
But I was just saying that, the employees, you have 7.5% from DME communities.
Yes.
But in the new employees, it says 5.5. So it's gone down.
Yes, it is. Yes, just very slightly.
I know many of them, they are not, no religious affiliation. You can't force them if they don't want it. And I know in many communities, it's not very popular to join the fire services. There are very few families who will like their children, boys or girls, to join. If it's an administrative job, it's fine, but actually to be fine. But you are doing good that at least you're promoting that. And on disabilities, does it cover the hidden disabilities as well, or it's just the visible ones, Because there are these.
It doesn't. It is purely disability. If someone chooses to disclose that they've got a disability, the issue of hidden disability is one that, again, I will need to dig further into. We are putting quite a lot of support in. What we're finding is that more and more firefighters and employees as a whole are being more open about things like their neurodiversity. And our health and wellbeing lead is working jointly with the Equality and Diversity Manager to look at, if you post around somewhere, a health passport.
Yeah.
So rather than employees having to say, I have dyslexia, and every time they move into a different role, they've got a passport that they can go and then talk with their line manager about what those particular needs are. But I think the fact that people are starting to be more confident in having those conversations is indicative of the fact that we're going in the right direction from a cultural point of view, which is why I think it's important to see, not just to see the isms, as we might originally have called them, whether someone has ethnicity or gender or whatever. It's about people as a whole, and what can we do as a service to support people as a whole.
That's good.
I think so. Just to add that, if I can. So the percentage includes everyone who's declared a disability, whether that be visible or not visible. What we've got is a large chunk of the organisation that hasn't declared either way. So, for example, I declare a disability. I have epilepsy. You wouldn't know it to look at me, but I have declared a disability. That's included in that figure. So, out the real nut that we'd like to crack is people feel comfortable to share that with that. And I have to say, for 20 years, I didn't declare that publicly. It's only when I'm in the right space that I'll declare my disability. And I think the other thing that it is fair to mention, because of the role of firefighters, which are the largest percentage of our organisation, there are some disabilities we cannot accommodate simply because of the nature of the role. So to a degree, there is a barrier that we'll never be able to overcome because of what we ask our firefighters to do for the benefit of the community. So balancing act, but I am confident, certainly with Judy and Isla's expertise, this is an area that will continue to improve year on year, and we're just about to embark on another large recruitment campaign, and I hope a lot of the work that we've done for the last two and a bit years will come to the forefront. But you are right, some communities don't see the career opportunity of fire and rescue services, and that is again something we'll try and work with, but we may never be able to overcome that. Absolutely, yeah, and we'll continue to do that. Yep.
But all looking at my face, people say, you look well, fine, but my inside doesn't look well.
Yes, yeah.
So, but you have to manage, it's better for people to respect that those who have it's invisible disability, they can manage. You know, I went to Dubai and the fire services there, they have got such a good thing. They celebrate children's birthdays and people hire out. And then they take them one after the birthday celebration, the children, they go into the fire engine and then they take them around. So this way, I think this sort of events, if you do, they will pay you for, I mean, they charge for that. And I said, so my grandson's birthday was celebrated. I thought that was such a good idea. It was laying with the horse pipe and also, you know, then the communities can come in more.
Yeah, I think that there's a few things there. So certainly we work with schools and nursery groups. So we do the show and tell, and we look to build the relationship with young people right from the outset. So as they grow into young adults and adults, they have an understanding and appreciation. I would be less comfortable in hiring our venues out for birthday parties and bits and pieces. The corporate liability, I would suggest, is outweighs the benefit.
You should reject this card, but I think we've been quite proactive. There's always more work we can do, isn't there?
And I think you utilised it brilliantly, better than I could have done the paper, I have to say. We're not happy with where we are with equality, diversity and inclusion. We need to improve. We're making painfully slow progress. It's not for the want of trying. And I think when you compare us against other fire and rescue services, most are in that situation. The national media attention at the moment around fire services won't be helping that. And those circumstances are not acceptable under any stretch of the imagination. We'll try and we will continue to try, but I don't think we've got a magic wand to magically change it overnight.
Yeah, no, I was just going to echo the chief's comments in relation to, you know, we're not where we want to be. And I think we need to be at a step where this is going to be an important plan for the next 4 years, etc. And I made the point earlier about how are we going to get there in terms of progression and timescales. And I know we're encouraging people to apply. We want a safe environment. We want people to work for the force, but we want people to be motivated in terms of the engagement that, you know, this stuff that we've got currently. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but what action plans have we got for the future in relation to wanting to do this? I know the papers highlighted a number of issues, but I think we need to pinpoint the aims and objectives in relation to how we get there.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll choose.
If you wouldn't mind.
So I think that's the benefit of having Isla joining us. She's not being disrespectful to the work that's gone on before. She's inherited a scheme and a series of objectives. I think it's incumbent upon her now to work with myself, with the head of HR, and with other departments, particularly from Paul's side of the business, to actually look at how we can translate some of those ambitions into reality. The key is giving people the right information about us as a service. We absolutely want the right people in the right role, with the right skills. The challenge to the fire rescue service nationally, I think, just from a personal point of view, is how open and honest and how, and I'm not speaking about Leicestershire, per se, I'm speaking about the service as a whole. How open and honest are we in terms of what adjustments are reasonable? What are the tests that we put in place, the image of the service, the work that we do? Because as the chief said, there is no magic wand. I wouldn't be so naive as to sit here and say that this time next year, when I'm reporting on this plan, we'll have 50% in terms of the workforce breakdown and 30%. It would be very naive to do that. I think as members, you've got a key role to play in your communities in helping to promote the fact that actually the fire service is a fantastic career, whether that be from an operational point of view or whether it be from a support services point of view. Because one of the challenges that we've got in respect to the equality and diversity is how do we get people from professional backgrounds to come and work in the fire and rescue service? Because like a lot of public sector bodies, we are experiencing a challenge to get people into those key roles. So there isn't I don't sit here and say to you that we'll have a green light next year. What I will promise to you is that I'll make sure that we're working as hard as we can to access those communities, to give people the proper, truthful, honest information about what it is to work with fire and rescue service, and that internally we'll do everything we can to make sure that we have a culture that is fit for the 21st century employer.
Thank you, Mike. The question I have on the paper actually comes to the action plan as well. The paper makes reference to an action plan. So my question was, where was that being reported to, so we can have kind of an oversight on how we're going? And I didn't know whether it was corporate governance or possibly employment, because it kind of sits between. So that was my question. Where would that be reported on an ongoing basis? Because I'm presuming any action plan would be smart, so that we can keep an overview before the reports back annually.
Thank you, Councillor. That was the purpose of the report, was to try and consolidate the various action plans that we've got into all of those things that are about people, whether that's outward facing and how we attract them, or whether it's how we work with them whilst they're in the service. To consolidate that into one area, we've got a tactical group that I will chair that is made up of operational people, support people, people from different backgrounds, who will work towards that level of action plan, who will then report to a more strategic group that I'll be chairing. But actually, your oversight for it will be through corporate governance. So I'm hopeful that what we can do is to produce an overall action plan that is people that will then go through those various different appointments.
Can I say, I mean, it has been just a couple of years that we actually did win an award at your event, because I went with Mapazi Award at the time. I collected it for our work on positive action and inequalities, but we're still a long way to go, but I think most organisations do as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. I think one of the things that would be beneficial is to actually have some comparative data, which, Judy, I think you alluded that you're looking at. Probably the one note of caution with that is to make sure that we're actually comparing like with like. But if we can include that, that'd be great, and I'm happy to move the report, Chair.
Richard, can I just add some comments before we move on? I think all of these comments are particularly valid, and I will say we've got more work to do, and we really want to do that. But we do also have to balance that with the other organisational needs of providing staff to crew fire engines and meet our statutory responsibilities. So, for example, with the support CFA, we're moving away from Day Crew Plus. That is seeing an increase in our establishment number. Most services are struggling to maintain their number, let alone grow it, just with recruitment cycles, etc. So there is a need that if there are appointable people out of the process, that we will probably appoint quite a few of those people that may not necessarily improve the diversity, but will allow us to meet our statutory responsibilities around providing fire and rescue service. So I'm not trying to say we're not interested in EDI. It couldn't be further from the truth. But we do have to balance that with the corporate responsibility and the requirement to meet the Fire and Rescue Services Act, etc. So we would love to get 100% diversity out of a recruitment campaign. That isn't always possible, and we will always look to, where possible, involve positive action to increase diversity. Not always possible, and our entry requirements, certainly for firefighters, around living within LLR and a certain boundary, we've reviewed almost on an annual basis the entry criteria to make it as diverse as possible without compromising the vital skills we need for those excellent firefighters that we want.
It's getting people. I think that's one of the biggest, just how we overcome that, I don't know. Whether they see it as a service maybe for white people, I don't know. But I think it's something we need to keep working on. I think we'll get there with it at some point. I'm hoping that we are working. I know I can say that as a member because I work with you on it, and we'll do as much as we can to try and change the balance of the service, but I think it's slow progress. Yeah, anyways. But thank you very much for everything. So can any other questions?
Report being no
Sorry?
proposed acceptance.
Okay then. So, okay, that's fine. Okay, so we move that the progress against the EDI action plan during the period of the be accepted and the consolidation of the equality, diversity, inclusion related actions detailed in the equality, diversity and inclusion scheme for 2022 to 2027. HMICFRS, and I don't know what this initial stand for, Spotlight Report Investor Foreign Action. So can we move that the report be accepted and the findings of the report acknowledged as well? And it's been used in second, yes, yeah. Are we all in favour? Thank you very much indeed. And the final item of today's agenda relates to an update on the variable response vehicles, and I think that's all, and it's pages 137, 144 of your agenda.
Thank you, Chair, and board members. The report provides an overview around the implementation of the variable response vehicles. As members will be aware, the CFA approved variable response vehicles, VRVs, into the service at its November 2021 meeting, which seems a lifetime ago. Through procurement, we are now in a position that within the next 2 months we will receive the VRVs. So the paper is to give members a briefing on what we propose to do with them. With the 2 vehicles that are coming in, we propose to run a 12-month trial across 4 stations. As the Chief has alluded to, the purpose of a VRV will offer us an opportunity to address a number of issues. First, around climate change. The vehicle will offer 3 types of extinguishing medium. So we will have a normal appliance pumping, so it will give us a low pressure that's on the standard appliance. It will give us a high pressure hose reel, which again is on the standard type B appliance. But the third thing, which is a misting system, is used where water is quite low, and it enables us to tackle fires with a low amount of water but at a high pressure. We have something very similar on our fogging unit, but I couldn't remember the name of it, in the Breebury, that's used during our wildfire or our off-road capability, which is another additional benefit that the VRV will offer is it can go on unmade surfaces. I won't say off-road because the expectation is that it will go up hills, down valleys. It won't offer us that capability, or we wouldn't encourage them. It will allow us to go on unmade ground. It will also, because the vehicle sits higher, as you can see through the images, it will allow us to go through water that could be, I won't say through rivers, because the expectation is it's only just on ground. It will allow us to go through low flooding in areas, which will enable us to deal with some of the issues that we're facing around climate change. It will also offer us a facility that will increase, or hopefully increase, appliance availability. The vehicle can be crewed between 2 and 5 personnel. So what our proposal to do is to put these vehicles in low availability stations. Where stations can't maintain a crew of 4, they will still have an operational response with crews of less than which will increase the availability of the vehicle. But it will also work towards retention. One of the issues, and it's a national issue, is retention of on-call firefighters. People join the on-call service and offer their time, but they don't stay very long because they're not going to operational incidents, which is the highlight of joining them on the call. And one of the reasons that they don't go to the incidents is because the vehicle's not available because there's not four. By offering this capability with less than four, it will go to more incidents, but we hope will then increase retention. We're also looking to be efficient with our vehicles. Currently, we have, as members will know, we introduced tactical response vehicles, TRVs, in 2015. This VRV is the next generation. Substations have a standard type B appliance and a tactical response vehicle. So they have two vehicles. The proposal is to remove the type B and to remove the TRV and replace it with one vehicle, which is a variable response vehicle. The vehicle will go to all incident types, dependent on the crew size or dependent on whether it's backed up by a normal standard type B appliance, which gives you the additional personnel. We propose to run this trial for 12 months, gathering information around appliance availability, community feedback, staff feedback, and again, any cost or resource optimization that we can get back from that. After which we will make a decision on where we're going to place them. As part of the trial, members will see that we've incorporated a whole-time station in Central Station. The reason that Central Station within the city has been highlighted is due to the cross-crewing of our aerial appliance. Currently, if the aerial appliance receives a call, two members of the standard type B appliance will jump on the aerial and go to the incident. That leaves two staff members back at the station without a resource to crew. By the implementation of the VRV at Central, if the aerial appliance is crewed or called to an incident, it will leave two personnel behind if they can then still maintain an operational resource through the VRV. It will also allow us to tackle some of the issues that have been highlighted throughout the meeting around congested areas within the city. Part of the evaluation will look at attendance time at that type of instance to see if the variable response vehicle makes a positive impact, all of which we'll be able to report on. I'm happy to take any questions on the paper.
It's been a question, it's more of a comment. I think I welcome the fact that we're doing this for the trial. I remember I was here in 2015 when the TRVs came and it wasn't without controversy on the public and actually some FTE as well, saying that this is a dumbing down of a question of capacity, and it's proved not to be, and it's proved to be useful. And I think doing it as a trial, where I think see what the benefits are, I think it's essentially like for support.
So, picking up on the trial period, what happens at the end of the trial if you don't want them? Have we already purchased them, or are they on a tryout contract from the supplier?
What we propose to do is the tactical response vehicles are coming to end of life. So we already have the TRVs that are embedded within the service. So what the proposal to do with the VRVs is to replace the VRVs out with the TRVs. If that makes sense. So say going out to repurpose or repurchase tactical response vehicles, we'll utilise that vehicle as the TRV, the next generation.
So if we don't want it,
We already have TRVs that are embedded within the service.
Yeah, no, just welcome the fact that, you know, in the city and congestion and problems of parking, etc., everywhere else. I think these vehicles will be a faster response in terms of areas where bigger vehicle you can't get to. And I don't know whether that's going to be pointed out in terms of the 12-month period of trial that you'll be doing.
So the engagement part with staff will be for them to feedback on, did they incur any issues around park vehicles congestion within the city? So we'll be getting feedback from staff around how they felt getting to the incidents. But likewise, what we'll do is evaluate the attendance time at incidents and do a comparison. Whether we see a significant difference, the trial will purpose that. And again, it's something that we can actually physically report on, both from a operational, how did it feel for the actual users of the vehicle, and also data around the actual attendance times.
Mr. Champion.
Thanks, Chair. In addition to obviously the trials that you've got at station in use, do you actually have a plan for trials to actually test the vehicle to its limits, etc.?
So it will be a fully operational vehicle. It will be classed as such. The feedback that we would get from staff will inform our decisions moving forward. They will go to all operational incident types. So every incident type that it will go is whether it's backed up dependent on the amount of crew.
But if you don't get any floods or anything like that in the trial time, have you got any plans to actually take it out somewhere for testing to see what it
It's not for flooding. We have flooding for about 3 months of the year and slash plain. So we've never got enough water. Come to slash plain, Farrow upon the door, down nearly every month. There will be this week. So don't worry.
I think Councillor Champion, yes, is the honest answer. That's one of the other reasons it's going to Central, because there is the possibility that Market Bosses, Uppingham and Wigston, they may not get the exposure we're looking for. That was another reason for Central of it's going to go to incidents at Central. Maybe not all incident types, subject to what happens in the trial. If they haven't experienced that, we'll look to create that because we want to make sure they're right for the future. But ideally, I'd like in the 12 months that they're with us that they experience most things, and certainly Central will create a great opportunity for that.
Well, I'm not a regular, but I am becoming more regular on this.
That's right.
I think it's great news, and I appreciate the difficulties in the city, but we also have them in other places. To travel half a mile in Loughborough and all the students are around can take anything up to 15 minutes. So, yes, I welcome this, and I will be very interested, and I'm sure all councillors will, across the whole region, and the results of these trials, not just this board. And I'd like to move the report. Acceptance of the
Hang on, we need to see if there are any more questions.
Thank you, Chair. So I welcome the report and the fact that looking at being more flexible with what we actually do. I'm assuming the picture we've got is pretty much of one of the vehicles that we're going to get. So a practical kind of question. It's already got a nice big chunky nudge bar on the front of it. In my division, we've got Watery Gate, which you might well be familiar with. People
Yes, I
come
am.
to take their car swimming and it doesn't work. So potentially circumstances like that, and potentially other operational situations, a winch on the front of it might actually be a fairly simple but beneficial thing to do. That's something we might consider, but happy to send the report as well.
Thank you, Chair. Mine was just regarding the cost savings, and in the report it's noted that it may result in lower costs due to fuel etc. I was wondering, and obviously appreciate time of officers, whether that can be incorporated to us in the report of the trial, so that we can actually have the balance of that. Thank you.
So if I can just respond to that, absolutely. And you'll notice everything in this is may, might, could, because we want to give the trial an honest view to kind of say there is no predetermined outcome here. Subject to them being successful, and I strongly believe they will be successful, there's actually quite a lot of savings for the authority, mainly in capital purchase of reducing from 2 vehicles down to 1 and various other things. So the savings we've underestimated the savings at the moment, but I do just want us to make sure they're actually fit for purpose rather than come with a predetermined opinion.
I wanted to accept. No, you wanted to accept.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, yes. Is everybody in agreement? Rush. The date of the next meeting, I'd like to remind everybody that the next meeting is will be held 27th of September at 10 a.m. And I say a very big thank you for everyone for attending the meeting. Sorry, did you want to say?
My apologies for the next meeting.
Apologies.
Because I'm not bored.
Okay.
Thank you.
I declare the meeting now closed. Thank you for your